Hey everyone, this is the Halifax Real Estate Podcast. My name is Jason Paul and I'm a licensed realtor at Keller Williams Select Realty in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm here to help you gain a better understanding of real estate in Halifax and introduce you to a wide variety of people that work in or with our industry as well. Today's guest is Trevor Kennedy, owner and operator of I Capture Images Photography in Halifax since 2012. Trevor and his business specialize in capturing architecture, interior, and commercial spaces. Please welcome Trevor Kennedy. How long, Trevor?
I've been shooting since I was about 18 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of my first jobs was at Black's Photography.
Okay.
So that sort of started that whole situation. And so, yeah, I started on film. Back then it was just shooting whatever. Over the years, I've done it all in terms of photography. I've done weddings, I've done family portraits, I've done pets, I've done it all. And then, after a couple of twists and turns, it led me to real estate photography. So
Yeah.
here I am.
So what got you into real estate photography?
You know, the story of how real estate photography happened was I had a conversation with a photographer friend of mine. So I was kind of like, I've had many different attempts at starting my own business. It's always been something that I've wanted to do, something that I felt like I felt like I had to do. Honestly, yeah, this is the funny part of this is that I've been like fired and quit in a rage and laid off from every single job I've ever held in my life.
Okay.
So like it's never just been, okay, it's been a really pleasure to work with you. Like here's my 2 weeks notice. It's never been like that. It's always some kind of drama.
Yeah.
So I kind of took the hint that, I needed to work for myself.
Yeah.
And so I sat down with a photographer friend of mine. This was after my I guess would have been around 2013. I was laid off from another job and sat down with her. She's a very talented food photographer.
Okay.
And I tried the photography game, like I said, weddings and family portraits and all that stuff. And she really kind of steered me in a very methodical way to, okay, what do you like to shoot? What are your strengths? Shooting people honestly is not my strength.
Okay.
I'm no good at posing people. The whole like chin up, chin down, look this way, look that way. I'm no good at it.
Okay.
So when it comes to like portraits, when it comes to weddings, if you're not good at posing people, I mean, people were happy with what I gave them, but so it just wasn't my strength. I'm more of a technical photographer.
Okay.
So my strength is in, finding the right composition and angle and lighting and all that good stuff. And she sort of suggested like, okay, so I was just laid off. I didn't have a whole lot of money. I needed to start making money quickly.
Yep.
And she said, okay, so where's there the biggest market? It was a very methodical process that she got me through. So she said, what about real estate? And I said, well, I love shooting homes and architecture and, that sort of thing. That's definitely something I've had a passion for. So she said, what about real estate? There's thousands of real estate agents in the city. Have you ever thought of giving that a try? And I said, no, that's cool. So she sent out a tweet. she has well over 100,000 Twitter followers.
Yeah.
She sent out a tweet saying, I've got a photographer friend who's looking to get into real estate photography. And 3 people responded to that tweet, and they were my first 3 clients.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all it took.
Knowing the right people. It's a typical Nova Scotia story.
What?
Yeah.
Someone sends a tweet out.
Someone sends a tweet out. They were my first 3 clients. I shot the first house for nothing. After that, I've been paid for every shoot I've ever done. And word of mouth spreads.
Yeah.
I believe that you do good work, you're good to people, and word will spread.
Yeah,
and
of course.
All of my clients now, every new client that I get is a referral from somebody.
Yeah.
Someone that I'm already shooting for. So, and that's, for the first 5 years, I needed a part-time job to supplement because it wasn't enough to pay the bills. But I've been full-time now for over a year and a half with no other safety net.
Congratulations.
Other than my lovely wife who's always made more money than me,
Yeah.
and kind of keeps things running at the house while I've been
Awesome.
building this up. So love to Mel. And other than that, yeah, it's just grown very organically over the last 7 years, and
May it continue.
now it's continuing. In
That's incredible.
yeah,
Did you buy, just before we get into real estate, did you buy that friend a nice bottle of wine? Please tell me.
she got a very nice dinner from me.
Oh,
out of
good,
that. Yeah,
good.
yeah,
So okay, the reason why I thought it's great to have you on right now is the market in Halifax is in such a aggressive landscape. We're in a very hot sellers market. Things are selling within, a day or two, or offers are going over asking all the time.
sure.
And this is from a seller's point of view. And this is what the angle is going to be, is because, people might think I can cheap out on things, maybe just save myself a couple bucks,
Right.
Because the market's so aggressive, someone will bid on it and it'll go over asking. And I thought of you because it's so important. Photography is I think one of the most important assets when it comes to selling a house. It's the first thing you see on MLS.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you go into a house, right, and you have a client, I send you a client, and we walk in, what's the first thing you try and capture when you walk into a house? Like, what's the first thing you're looking for when you start to take photos?
So the first thing I do when I get to a house is I'll do a quick walk around, typically, just to get a feel for the space. Also, just to mentally, there's a couple things that I'm doing when I'm walking around a house. I'm mentally figuring out what the shots are.
Yeah.
For a typical shoot, MLS is 30 photos. So I'm trying to figure out what are the 30 photos of this home that are going to really entice someone to come look at it, because that's my job, is to get someone in the door. They're going to look at it online, and then they're going to say, I got to go see that house.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to budget my photos, of the 30 that I want to get. And I'm also looking for any potential tricky shots, whether it's a tricky angle, a tight bathroom, a room that might not be lit very well, that I might have to figure out like how I'm gonna light that, or how I'm gonna do proper exposure to make that room look as good as it possibly can. We're obviously not trying to embellish or change what a house looks like, but it's a very delicate balance with photography, because obviously a camera is not the human eye.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to give as close to a representation as I can, while also still showing everything that everyone wants to see. So, we are using wide angle lenses. A lot of people kind of decry that and say that it's misrepresenting this, that, and the other thing. If I shot a house at the focal length that our eye sees the world, you'd never see anything. You'd be looking at pictures of, a corner of a room with a plant in the corner and stuff like that. You'd never be able to see the whole room. So I try my best to find that balance. So I'm switching on lights as I go around, and I'm trying to figure out what are the angles. One of the things that I really try to do when I shoot a home is to give as much information as I can.
Yeah.
So, you walk into a room, there's four corners of a room. And a lot of times you might be tempted to say, shoot from this corner, that corner, just go around to the four corners and shoot the room. That's not always necessarily the best way of shooting a room. If one angle, can describe enough of that room, the windows that are in that room,
Yeah.
the rooms that are adjoining to that room. If one angle can kind of convey all of that information, then there's no point in shooting three more. So I'm always looking for the best angle that's giving the most information about the room, especially to a buyer's point of view. Like, the furniture, is going to make a room look like a room, and it's going to give the buyer some idea of how a room is set up. But a buyer's not buying the furniture. A buyer is buying the windows, they're buying the fixtures, they're buying the stairs, they're buying the adjacent rooms. So I'm trying to give the buyer information.
Yeah.
What room is connected to this room? Are there stairs somewhere? Like, all of that good information. How much light does the room get? So I'm looking for windows. So Yeah, so that was a long-winded way of describing how I kind of approach a house shoot. But that's what I'm looking for is like, what are the most informative ways that I can shoot this room to kind of convey a lot of information to a buyer, a prospective buyer who's looking at it online.
Yeah. So basically, to sum it up, when you're taking a photo, you're trying to make sure you're trying to gravitate buyers towards coming in, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Like I said, I'm very informative when it comes to shooting a house. Like I've seen, photographers come in and they're like, it's like quality over quantity. Like they'll just shoot like 10 shots of the same room. And it's just like that. And it's almost like they stand in the center of the room and they like just pivot and just take photos in like all different directions. And it's like, that's not giving anyone any information like that, the difference from one shot to the other shot, it's not giving any extra information. So there's no point in including that shot.
No, of course.
I'd rather give, sometimes there aren't 30 shots of a house, you know what I mean? I'd rather give 15 amazing shots that's conveying a lot of information to a buyer to entice them to want to see more rather than show every corner of every little nook and cranny of a house, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that's helpful. Personally.
No, completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we always want, I know, like when we're looking at pictures on MLS, the pictures on MLS are so important for a buyer or even us as realtors to recommend taking our clients to them because it has to fit. Most buyers have certain criteria: 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 2-bath, X amount of square footage, certain location, and then finishings matter. Whether or not, it also depends on how much work they're willing to do. So if someone says, "Oh, I'm not looking for a lot of work. I want to move in ready home." The finishes are so important, how that comes off.
Right.
And sometimes, like, you can have pictures, as you say, can be misleading. I don't think that's anyone's intention, but you can walk into a space and judging by a photo, think, oh, it's immaculate. There's tall ceilings, and suddenly be walking into a room that the ceilings are like 8 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet tall.
Right.
It closed in a bit. It's amazing what a photo can do in terms of selling a property. And like you see it on buyers' faces when you're with them. When you walk into a space and the photos are a representation of the space, their faces light up. If the photo is not a representation of the space, their faces drop.
Right.
Because they go in expecting one thing and having something else happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, that's why we're bringing you on today, is because it's so important to make sure that these photos convey a true image of what you're trying to sell and why it's so important to have photography done at a highest level.
Sure.
And now when someone is getting ready to sell their home and they're talking about photography, right? Is there anything they should be asking the photographer, or is there anything they can, like, some way to make sure that they're getting the best value for what they're trying to do?
Right.
Do you have any ways for people to be able to go about that? Other than contact you, of course.
Photography is, good photography is definitely one aspect of it. I mean, I shoot all kinds of different homes, whether it's, there's one agent that I work for who he has me shoot everything, literally everything. I shot a foreclosure for him. I think it was out in Woodside somewhere, and it was completely trashed. Like, completely trashed. Like, it smelled funny. There was all kinds of I can only do so much.
Yeah.
So, a good photographer is definitely a first good step, but like prepping your home, I think, is just as important.
Yeah.
The best way to get good photos out of a good photographer is to give them something nice to shoot. I just described a place around the corner from your place here that I shot it was staged like immaculately. It was like a magazine when I walked in there. So I think equally important to, the quality of the photos is going to be a stager, or at least some staging tips on how to present your home properly.
Yeah, of course.
With an eye towards photography.
Yep.
So like there's certain like little things that I'd love to see when I go into a home.
Like what?
So one of the things that kind of drives me crazy, and this I'm positive doesn't bother maybe many other photographers, but one of the things that does drive me crazy is seeing, so all these LED bulbs and CFL bulbs that we have these days, there's two very distinct color temperatures of light bulbs.
Okay.
A warm white and a cool white.
Okay.
So to your eye, they do look different,
Yeah.
especially to mine. But so like one looks a little more blue and the other has a warmer tone, like more of an orangish tone. And one of the things that does drive me crazy is when I go into a home and there's a mixture, like even in the
Oh, okay.
same, even within, like if there's one of those, chandeliers that has like 4 or 5 bulbs in it,
Yeah.
there's like a mixture of different color temperatures in the same thing. And it kind of drives me crazy. Maybe it's an OCD thing. I
Might
don't
be
know.
OCD thing.
But because I always try to edit, I always try to edit my photos to have a very even kind of feel to them. I
Yep.
don't ever want things to look like one part of the room to look really cool and the other part of the room to look really warm. If it's kind of a warm tone of a room to begin with, I want it to feel warm. If it's, you know what I mean? So, so little things like that. It's funny that you bring this up today. I'm actually like literally just this morning was typing out a little checklist
Okay.
that I'm developing to try to give some homeowners some tips. Nothing, I will say right off the bat, because I'm friends and colleagues with a lot of really great stagers. Nothing can replace a professional stager. They do great work. And I would never pretend to be a professional stager in any way, shape, or form. But there are certain things about, preparing your home that are just going to fundamental things that are going to help. So I'm preparing a little list of kind of a checklist that maybe by the time this podcast is released, you can link to
It's
on the website. So.
It's really funny you bring up staging because staging was our last episode.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I know we didn't talk about what it was, but yeah, we did staging with Lori Butler.
nice.
Which is why I'm doing photography next because
Right.
they just go so hand in hand.
Yeah.
Now, do you
they
work?
really do.
Do you work with a stager before you go into shoot, or do you just like? Would you You obviously highly recommended a stager. So, do you want the stager in before you come in so you can take photos of the space properly, or like how would you work with that?
So I typically don't work directly with many stagers. Normally, their job is done before I get there.
Yeah.
Occasionally I've gone to a shoot where they were still kind of getting things together, as I was setting up. So I've met a lot of great stagers that way. But yeah, it's typically, that's something that the realtor would
Organize,
and then they do their job, and then I'd come in and do mine. Most of the folks that I know locally have a really good sense of the photography as well. They stage to support the photography.
Yes.
Which is great. The way that they place like a chair in a room, opposite the couch and all that stuff, like they do, I can tell that they're staging it for photography. Like they've looked at interior design books, I'm sure, up the wazoo, so they know how these things look and how to make them look best in photography. So, there are specific things about photographing a home that a stager might not even think of. One of the things that comes to mind is I always walk in, especially this time of year, I'll walk into a home and like all the ceiling fans are on.
Ooh.
You got to turn all the ceiling fans off.
That makes sense.
In photography, and this isn't going to make sense to anyone that doesn't know anything about photography, but a lot of times when I'm shooting inside of a house, the shutter speed is very slow, meaning the amount of time that the sensor is exposed is long, relatively speaking. It could be a half second.
Okay.
And in that amount of time, if you have something moving in the frame, like a ceiling fan, it's going to just show up as a blur.
Yeah.
So, so like those are the kind of things that end up on this checklist is like ceiling fans off, try to replace all of your burnout light bulbs. If you can, match them in color temperature because that's going to look the best. Little things like that. Kleenex boxes, I have kind of a vendetta against Kleenex boxes. Like, get all them out of the shot. I can't stand the way they look.
Oh, well, I mean, when we always work with a seller as a realtor, we always tell them it's not your house anymore.
That's right.
You're now, as soon as you decide to put your house on the market, it's not your house anymore.
Yeah.
We're trying to empty the space of your possession, of your personal belongings, so that a seller can walk into this space and picture their pictures up. They can picture where their Xbox or PS5 or Nintendo Switch goes, and that is such a crucial detail that a lot of people seem to miss when they're trying to sell a home. Is that take yourself out of it because it's an advertisement to sell on your own. Now, the next thing I want to get into is that we talked about the staging and getting the place presentable for you to come in and do the best shoot possible.
Yeah.
Is there anything, how do you tackle houses that haven't been staged or haven't been necessarily clean, or like they're not, the work hasn't been done, but you have to do the job anyway? Are there tips and tricks going into the shoot that you can kind of talk about that can still bring a lot of value?
As a photographer, I am always trying to present the home in its best light possible.
Yeah.
You know, if a homeowner's been given all the prep necessary, and they haven't done the prep, that's when, unfortunately, if you want to cut this or not, but that's unfortunately when the businessman in me has to come out and say, like, I've booked an hour and a half to be here to shoot this house.
Yep.
I can't, in the condition of this house is in, we can't realistically like restage it while I'm here so that I can shoot it. Like, once in a while, of course, you need to move something from one room to another room, that sort of thing. But like, I've got another shoot after this.
Yep.
So I can't spend 2.5 hours here because you haven't properly staged it.
Yeah, no,
if
that's
that makes
fair.
sense, right?
Completely.
So yeah, unfortunately, I do have to kind of keep a schedule that way, which is one of the reasons I'm developing this wonderful list that I'm hoping will help homeowners get ready, and so that when I show up, things are relatively ready for me to shoot. But of course, there's like, I can be creative with angles to avoid certain things. If there's a piece of furniture that they've got on Kijiji that they haven't sold yet, that's kind of stuffed in the corner, I can be creative and I can avoid that in a shot usually. So there are things that I can do just creatively, whether it's shooting from different angles, whether it's like, we'll just shuffle that around the corner for this shot and then move it back, things like that. Small things are no problem, and I don't mind giving little tips and tricks to people as I'm going around. Like, if you don't mind, let's just pull that Kleenex box out because I can't stand them, like stuff like that. Those are things that I can do. But yeah, I mean, everyone's got to respect everyone else's time.
Of course.
And I book an hour and a half, and that's usually how long it takes me to shoot a house, pretty much on the dot.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what size it is. I mean, if it's a gigantic estate, then it sometimes takes a little longer. But to shoot 30 images generally takes about an hour and a half each time. So that's how I budget my time. And I've got like I've got a system where I do like online booking, so people will book, right on top of
one another.
So
Yeah.
I've got to leave and get to my next shoot. So unfortunately, as much as I can get done, sometimes a house just has to be shot as is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I also another point of saying, being the businessman in you is that if a home isn't ready to be shot, don't shoot it, because it's almost a disservice. Because we talk about all the benefits of great photography.
Right.
There's also the other side of the coin where you say all the negative sides of poor photography, or someone not taking the care and respect into taking the proper pictures of their home.
Right.
Because that can also have such a negative impact of a home, especially today. You're every home that comes to market right now in the market that we're in is being examined by thousands of eyes immediately.
Yeah, so I will say that I don't believe that any of the agents that I work with would send me into a situation knowing that it was going to be, not ideal.
Okay.
I go back to, like, I talked about the foreclosure that I shot, and I knew what I was going into, at that shoot, because I knew that it was foreclosure. He told me it was going to be a crap show, and I was like, okay. So we didn't even take very long to do the shoot, just because I just kind of I did the thing that I tell people not to do, which is to just kind of plunk down a tripod in all four corners and take a shot, because it was just super, like, everything was destroyed. So anyway, I've only ever refused to shoot a house once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I showed up the house. I was actually working with the homeowner at that particular time, so not the realtor. Sometimes that happens, whether the realtor's busy, so they'll send you to a home, and they'll let you know, like, it's going to be the homeowner that's going to be there with you. So I showed up, and it was an absolute disaster. And I knew the agent very well who I was working for, and I knew that they weren't going to be happy with what I was, knowing everything else I've ever shot for them was staged and done well and all and prepped and everything. So I called them. I just excused myself and called them and said, "Yeah, this place is a disaster. Like, were you aware that I was going to be shooting this as is? Do you want me to continue shooting it?" And they're like, "No." They said they had a list of things to do. So get out of there. Bill me for your time if you have to, but it's not worth doing if we're not going to do it right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, what was wrong with the property that made you not want to shoot it? Like, what are things people can avoid in the future?
What wasn't wrong? Like, dishes were piled up in the sink.
Oh, okay.
It was literally filthy everywhere. Like there was dirt.
Yeah.
Like visibly there was dirt everywhere, like all over the floor. Like I said, dishes weren't done. Nothing. Like it looks like it hadn't seen a vacuum in like months.
Oh dear.
So it just wasn't prepped at all. Like
yeah.
It was kind of like I showed up and I was like you guys knew I was coming, right? Like
yeah, do the job.
Would you show up if a portrait photographer was coming to do family photos? Would you show up and like not get dressed and not brush your hair? Like,
yeah,
it's the same thing.
Same thing.
You got to prep your house for
only
photography as well.
I would make the argument that for a portrait photographer, it's something that you want for yourself and your family. If you're going to sell your house, you're trying to use it to make money.
It's true. Yeah, different motivations for sure.
Different motivation and different set of circumstances. But I'm selling something worth $250,000. I'm going to try and make that thing as presentable as possible.
You would think.
Yeah. Now, for anyone listening that's thinking about doing their own photos, please clean the dishes. Please remove the dirty laundry or the clean laundry from your bed. Please, remove the Kleenex boxes.
Yeah, like I said, there should be a handy dandy list at www.icaptureimages.com that you can look at and figure out the things that you're supposed to do to prep your house for photography. But I mean, that's only half the job. Like doing your own photos has some pitfalls.
Okay, what are those?
So cell phones are getting really, really good.
Yep.
I've got a XS, so it's a couple of years old. So I'm looking at probably getting the 12 this year, whatever comes out this year. And phones are getting really, really good. They've got wide angle lenses on them now. They can do all kinds of crazy stuff, but they are not designed around shooting interiors of houses. They're just not. They're designed around shooting pictures of your friends at restaurant, selfies of yourself at SeaWorld or wherever you happen to be. That's literally what they're designed to do. So they're not putting in like all of this like computational photography that they're putting into the iPhone and the Huawei's and the Samsungs. It's all great, but it's not focused on this kind of photography. And very, very quickly, you can point a cell phone at a well-lit room or the exterior of a house that's front lit by the sun and get a decent photo for sure. What a professional photographer knows how to do is how to get great photos out of any situation, any lighting situation. And there's very few houses that I could say I've ever been into that you could go in with a cell phone and get decent photos out of it. Maybe one or two shots you could, maybe 3 or 4 shots you could, because just the light works out.
Yeah.
But most houses have all kinds of potential pitfalls when it comes to how the lighting is working in the house. And as I said, cell phones, they're not designed to
capture that.
To capture that. They're just not. They're designed to capture people.
Okay.
So it's a very, very specific skill set, shooting interiors and architecture. From the gear that I use to, the training that I've undertaken, all of it self-taught stuff, but I've bought numerous like online tutorials and stuff like that about how to capture interiors and architecture in their best light, because it's a very specific skill set. It's not, there are a lot of like talented photographers that, I could send them in to shoot a home and they might not come back with the best pictures because they don't have the tricks and the tools necessary to capture those kind of spaces properly.
Of course.
Yeah. It's just very, very specific.
One thing we come across in the real estate industry more often than not are heavily edited photos, and to give a home the best light it can, sometimes a little too far, edited, but how much editing do you do post production, and how much do you put in to make to make a room come off the best light? Are we trying, like, you know what I mean? Like, what actually goes into that for you?
So editing is just as much a part of the process as the actual capture of the photos. So I use different techniques based on the situation that's presented to me. So something that someone may have, out there may have heard of is something called HDR photography, or high dynamic range photography, where a number of different photos is taken of the exact same thing. One like low exposure, one middle exposure, and then one overexposure. Then you merge them together. So that's one technique that's used commonly to kind of capture a range of, all of the lightest parts of a room, but then all the darkest parts of a room, to kind of bring that all into a, kind of an even exposure, so that it looks okay to the eye. Because again, the human eye can do that effortlessly.
Yeah.
To kind of balance, when you look at the inside of a room, everything looks good in here, but then you look outside, and outside looks properly exposed as well. That's not how cameras see the world at all. So, so I use multiple different techniques at the point of capture, based on the situation that I'm in. Sometimes it's HDR, so I might take a quick bracket, we call it, of 3 photos, one underexposed, one middle exposure, and one over, and then blend them together afterwards. So, and there's other techniques as well, but the editing is an equal part of the whole process. I would never just like take photos and then deliver what I got, because it would not, you wouldn't be happy with what you got back if I just gave you exactly what I captured. So I spend, if I'm an hour and a half at a home, I'm probably another hour and a half ish editing back home.
Okay.
Before I deliver the final photos.
Okay.
Probably an equal amount of time.
Awesome. Now, we talked about this before we got on air, and I'm actually wanting to go up in this, go along with this topic as well, because you not only do you do photos, but you also do virtual tours.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which is a very big thing right now for sellers. Given
I do
COVID.
everything, Jason.
Fair. I'm sorry to discredit you.
Just if I can plug myself for a second. I do photos, video, virtual tours, drone. I do all of that stuff. So yes, I have a wide range of services.
Yeah.
All kind of related, obviously. That realtors are looking for to present a house in its best way possible. So yeah. So the virtual tours have been something that has gotten extremely popular. Over the last few months, especially during the COVID times, just to limit the number of feet going through a house, to kind of pre-qualify people, so to speak. Go do the virtual tour, make sure that you like the layout of the house, make sure you like the look of it, and then we'll get you in for an in-person viewing sort of thing. So that's something that's exploded over the last few months for sure.
Okay. Now, for anyone who might be curious about selling their home in the future and thinks that the virtual tour might be for them because, worried about random people coming in their home, spreading COVID, especially when schools open up in the fall, as they have just announced.
Yeah.
What is Matterhorn? How does it work for people that might be curious about that particular feature you offer?
So yeah, the technology is called Matterport. They're a company out of the States, and they've developed this technology that allows you to go in with a specialized camera. So it's done differently from standard photos. So when I go to do a home with Matterport, I essentially shoot the home twice.
Okay.
Once for standard photos, and then once with the 360 camera to capture all of the different interaction points in the Matterport tour. So it's a virtual walk through a home. Like it's Google Street View for a home.
Oh, okay.
So you're clicking, at different points on the screen to move in a direction within the home, that you can literally kind of walk as if you're moving through the home. You can click and drag to look around at any different. If there's something that you want to take a closer look at, you can kind of zoom in and do all that stuff. And there's a lot of different services that do this. I kind of gravitated towards Matterport because They're one of the industry leaders in doing that sort of thing. There are a number of different services like it, though. I find the Matterport, I find their interface super, super easy. My litmus test for it was I sent it to my mother, who's 70 years old, and I said, let me know if you have any trouble
Yeah.
interacting with this. And she's like, oh, no, it's just like Google Street View. You just click where you want to go. And so that's the thing that there are a lot of other products that are out there that do it. You know, a lot of them, you have to specifically click little interaction, like they have like little arrows or little chevrons on the screen, and you have to specifically click those if you want to go in a direction. I love how with Matterport, you just click anywhere you want. It doesn't have to be on a specific point,
Yeah.
and it'll take you in that direction.
Oh, awesome.
That's the thing I like about it. And they have the dollhouse view. I think that's what they're most famous for.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I've
but
seen it.
yeah, if you've seen it online, it's really cool. It kind of gives this like 3D view of a home, kind of in a dollhouse configuration.
Yeah.
I think that part's relatively gimmicky. But it is a cool presentation. There's no denying that it's really cool to see it for the first time, to see your home presented that way.
Yeah.
But I don't find it super useful. I guess for layout reasons, I guess it could be like what's above what in this house. You know, that sort of thing, because it does present like, you know, if it's a 3-story house, it presents all 3 floors, so you can see what's above what and all that cool stuff. It's a really nice presentation. And you know, for this kind of like challenging time right now, it's one of those things that more and more people are asking for, and more sellers are actually demanding it. I had one realtor who was kind of on the fence about getting it or not.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, they were getting me in to do the photos, which is great, and they figured the house would sell very quickly. It was just in a price range that they figured,
Location,
especially in the
price
hot
point.
market, the price was right, the location was right. They figured it would go pretty quickly. It was actually the seller that demanded that they get Matterport as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting tool because, like we said during COVID, you don't like sellers are less inclined to have open houses, or they just
100%.
allow, you know, oodles of people in and out of their home, because you just don't know nowadays, unfortunately, with what the current climate is. And that's why I wanted to bring up Matterport. I know we didn't discuss previously, but I thought it was a great way to, you know, it's a great tool that you could provide, and a great system for people to be able to see homes without having to actually step inside them. And it's a great way to qualify whether you want to see the house or not. And a great way for sellers to stay safe as well with whatever today is, because we don't know when we're going to go back to normal.
Yeah, exactly. And it, you know, I'm kind of seeing it as like, there's some realtors that, even though acceptance right now of having people in their homes and stuff like that, everyone feels a little bit like, you know, we're kind of over the hump for now. But I see a lot of realtors that are still continuing with it, just because they've kind of set it up as like, this is part of my offerings. Like it's just one of the things that I offer now. It's a competitive thing.
My final question before we get out of here, though, is can you give me an example, and our audience an example, of one time you went into a house and you had to reshoot it that made a significant impact on helping it sell?
I've reshot homes that have had, like, say, terrible photos.
Yeah.
You know, and all I can say is they didn't sell previously.
Yeah.
And then
completely.
They did. So
I suppose that's a simple answer.
Yeah, I'm not always involved, you know, on the back end of, you know, what all goes into. Sometimes I'll get a story from my realtor, so they'll tell me about what happened. But I've definitely seen, you know, homes that I've shot that I go, oh, this was already listed, and so I'll go on and I'll see what the photos were.
Yep.
So I do recommend, you know, make sure you go to a photographer's website. And on top of going to a photographer's website, one thing I will definitely say is, if you're looking for a photographer, whether it's a package deal with a realtor or whatever, ask for a complete set of photos.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So we pick and choose what we put on our website.
Yep.
Right? Like anything. So I'm only going to pick the bathroom from this house and the kitchen from that house and the exterior from this house. Ask for a full set of photos. That's how you can tell. Because like I said, anyone who walks into a home, you could walk into a home with a cell phone and come back with a decent photo of a well-lit room, or if the sun's shining on the front of a house, it's going to look good with a puffy clouds in the background. So, but ask for a full set of photos. What is what are the 30 photos of a recent home that you've shot?
Yep.
Can I see the full set of photos? And that's going to tell you, like, in different lighting conditions, in different challenging situations, how did this photographer deliver photos? And that's going to give you a great idea of how they work. But yeah, so to answer your question, I would say, the house didn't sell previously, and then once it was shot with photos that showed it properly, it did.
I think that's all you need to say.
Yeah.
How can people get a hold of you in case they're thinking about getting photography done and selling their home?
Yeah, so my company is called I Capture Images. That is spelled EYE.
Yep.
CaptureImages.com. So www.icaptureimages.com is my website. Lots of portfolio stuff on there. You'll also see that I do a lot of like commercial work as well. So I've shot some restaurants locally, hotels, that sort of thing as well.
Awesome.
So so my work is varied, and I use a lot of the same techniques from higher end commercial work down into the real estate world and the more run and gun photography. But I certainly take my time. 90 minutes is on the long end of what other photographers would take in a home. I know some local guys that they'll be in and out of a home in 20 minutes. And I don't believe that you can properly capture a home that way. So I like to quality over quantity. I'm not going to give you 80 photos to sift through. I'm going to give you 30 really amazing photos of your home. So that's my sales pitch.
Right. Thank you so much for coming on, Trevor. You have no idea how much I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
All right. I'll be in touch soon.
All
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you want to get in touch with Trevor, you can reach him at 902-830-2688 or tkennedy at icaptureimages.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me at 902-220-7357 or jason.paul@kw.com. Thanks again. Bye.